be true. Of a clan of medieval warriors awoken in modern-day Manhattan. Of the animated series that told their story. Welcome to Voices from the Eyrie, a Gargoyles podcast.
Prepared.
Yes. All right. Introduce everybody.
All right. Welcome to Voices from the Eyrie, a Gargoyles podcast. I'm your co-host, Greg Washansky. And joining me, as usual, is my co-host, my partner in crime, Jennifer L. Anderson. And we would like to welcome back to the show the voice of Lexington, Thom Adcox Hernandez.
Snacks for everybody.
Hello, Thom.
Hello, Greg. How are you?
Great, how are you?
Excellent, excellent.
The voice of Angela, Brigitte Bako. And we would like to welcome to the show for the very first time, even though she's technically on every show, the inspiration in the voice of Shari, Zehra Fazal. And of course, the series creator, the producer of the first 2 seasons of Gargoyles, the writer of the SLG and Dynamite comic books, Mr. Greg Weisman. Funny enough, this is actually our 50th show. I would like to say we timed it that way, but we did not.
Serendipity, yeah.
Very much so. So, Zehra, this is your first time on, technically, or not technically.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for finally coming. So, anyway, your story, we've spoken to these people before, and we're going to speak to them again throughout this, but your story is very interesting. You went from fan to pro. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, gosh, yeah. So, just like y'all, I grew up going to comic book conventions, sci-fi conventions. I was a huge fan of animation and comics. And was a huge fan of Gargoyles. And when I was 16, I asked my father as a high school graduation present. Yeah, I was 16. I skipped a grade. I was kind of young. I was like, Dad, can we please go to the gathering of the Gargoyles? And my father is the best, so off to Los Angeles we went. It was in Hollywood that year. And that's where I met most of these amazing people and many of you out there. And I had the opportunity, I was always interested in acting and performance, though at that point I wanted to be an animator. I loved visual art. But I had the opportunity to audition for Greg in the radio play at the convention. And he cast me as the role of Elisa Maza, which was a dream come true. And you know, I mentioned this last night for those of you who are here, but when you're a young person and somebody you admire and respect so much says, hey, I see you have this talent. Like, Greg, you told me, you know, you're about to go to college. When you graduate, you should think about coming to LA because I think you could really have a career doing this. And that always stuck in my mind. I
can't believe that I gave any human being the advice to be an actor.
Right?
Crazy. It was truly a cruelty.
I'm like a horrible person.
Yeah. You ruined my life. No, it's good, pretty good so far. And so, growing, you know, through college and beyond, I studied acting, I trained in theater, I did tons of plays, but it was always in the back of my head, gosh, I should try moving to LA one day and working in the medium I love most, which is animation. And I'm really glad I made that choice. Thanks, Greg.
Amazing.
Yeah. I want to say also that I love that you're giving me all this credit. I do. I mean, I really love that. But a couple things. One is that it wasn't just me who cast you in the play, it was Jennifer and me who cast you in that play, that radio play. That's one. And two, I'm glad I helped nurture your talent, but let me just tell you, you had a ton of talent before I even got close. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, I remember that
Thank
very
you.
well.
Thank you. But you made me see it was actually possible to do. Like being at a convention and meeting voice actors and people who are doing the thing, it's like you see what could be a career path for you. So I'm just so grateful for those experiences. Thank you.
She was just a baby. She was so cute, and she's got such a beautiful, clear voice, and nailed it.
Speaking from 20-year-old memories, I do remember a very collective "Who is that?" when you were performing Elisa in that radio play. You were a natural.
Thanks. I'm grateful because I've definitely found the sweet spot of where I'm supposed to be. Yeah.
All right, and to elaborate on that, Greg, you sort of paid tribute to her when the SLG comic came out. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I had this character in mind, Shari, who we've since revealed in the Dynamite comics is actually Scheherazade, and an immortal. Zehra sort of inspired me in turn, and so we sort of, Corinne out there, I can't see anything.
Yeah,
there she is. So Corinne and I modeled Shari on Zehra.
And I had no idea. I got the issue because I was buying all the issues, and I get to like the last page. I'm like, that kind of looks like my headshot. Wow. So it's very deeply flattering. Thank you for that.
And always had her in mind to play Shari if we ever, do an animated show again.
Disney, are you listening?
Meanwhile, she is in my head the voice of Scheherazade.
And we were lucky enough to get her to do the opening for our podcast.
Yay.
There was absolutely no way we
character.
weren't going to do that.
That's amazing.
All right. So, Thom, you as Lexington, and this is for Greg also, how would you say your casting influenced Lexington, and how did he influence you?
How did well, I walked in there, I was probably just so fabulous that they were just blown away by me. So, I don't know. I should be closer. Oh, there you go. Here. Ask me that
It's
question.
almost like he's not a voice actor.
All right,
I know.
He was kind of fabulous right from the get-go. And it also solved a problem we had, which was that we were casting gargoyles and we had no idea what a gargoyle should sound like. And two people solved that problem. One was Thom. The other was Bill Fagerbaki,
Yes.
who
Very unique voices.
came in and auditioned for Broadway. And they both have this gravel in their voice, but at different pitches. And suddenly we're like, this makes sense. Gargoyles should have gravel in their voice. And so Thom was Lexington and Bill was Broadway. And we just said to Jeff Bennett, who I don't like to do any shows without Jeff Bennett, find the guy in the middle. And Jeff is a technician. I mean, he's a phenomenal actor, but he's also a technician.
Yes, incredible.
So he just did that. He found the voice in the middle. And that helped us with every gargoyle that we cast after that. There's always got to be some element of gravel, even in this one's voice.
Can I have gravel?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit.
It's funny because I played Clancy Brown's son in The Adventures of Jackie Chan, and they were going to do a spin-off with me and Charlie Schlatter and somebody else. But Clancy played my dad, so...
Will someone please move that mic closer to Tom's
Oh,
mouth?
my God. There you go. Oh,
Thank
yeah.
you. Jesus.
Have you
So,
done
yeah,
this
so-
before?
The chair moves. The chair moves.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's it. that awake? Thank you, guys.
But Tom, how would you
not
say
at my
Lexington has influenced you?
It's made me want to be a little more technical.
That's not going to happen.
And people know that I'm just the most untechnical. So, yeah, and I don't know. I just felt like Lexington is such a part of me. It just felt right from the minute I walked in the door. And it just felt right, and it was just, it
Yeah, they're
gave me a whole
inextricably
career.
linked. I can't imagine it any other way.
And I don't know if everybody's seen it, but I got Lexington on my arm. Finally. Because a lot of the fans would always say, yeah, you can get a Lexington tattoo? So next is Clarion, the witch family.
Oh, yay!
I'm going to put that little fucker on me.
Get the cat.
The what? Yeah, with Tickle, of course.
Brigitte, you have worn many hats in this industry. Actress, writer, producer. What has that been like?
Should have gone to law school. No. It's been amazing. It's been amazing. I didn't expect to be all these things. My mother used to say to me every time she read one of my term papers, Brigitte, you're a writer. I cannot spell to save my life, so I thought, I can't do that.
Weisman can't spell either.
I mean, I'm beyond spell check.
Either. I did it.
I'm truly beyond spell check. So they all kind of came as a surprise, as did voice acting, because I don't know. I just was sent in for this. And I think that, as we said yesterday, the writing was just so beautiful, maybe because she was raised on Avalon. It just seemed so classical to me. She seemed just so poised but very strong, and then these growls would come out of her. So she had a bit of her mother, a bit of her father, and a bit of the people that raised her. So she had this ethereal kind of classic thing about her that I loved, and I think I'm a princess, and I think I'm an heiress, and so it came very, very, very naturally to me.
And how would you say, and this is also for Greg, how did Brigitte's casting influence Angela?
Well, so season 1, we auditioned all the regulars. And then after that, for guest characters, we never held auditions because there was never time. I mean, so that's just Jamie, me, and Frank. Jamie Thomason is our voice director, and Frank Parr is my partner and co-showrunner on the show. And we'd talk about who we thought might be good, and then depending on availability or whatever, we'd bring them in. But when we got to season 2, the one character that we felt we needed to audition for, because it was just too important, and because she was going to be a new regular, was Angela. And we heard a lot of people, and there was only this one who could make it work. And I love all you guys doing these visual things for an audio podcast. But
Brigitte
anyway,
is showing her breast.
Again. Sorry. They're absolutely in semi-retirement.
And what Brigitte brought to it was this incredible ability to be simultaneously sort of innocent and naive, and then a badass. And what became clear is that she was innocent and naive about the modern world, not in general. She wasn't naive about people or gargoyles or emotion or any of that kind of thing. She wasn't like this waif, floating through our adventures. She was tough, but there was a lot about the modern world she didn't know. And Brigitte really brought all that, but what she skipped in her answer is, how did you transition into becoming the creator, producer, writer, and star of your own television series?
I had no idea. Okay, this is what happened. So in the 90s, if you were pretty sexy, could act, you were just kind of naked a lot in movies, and bludgeoned and killed and a victim and all those things. I really wasn't getting the roles that I wanted to do, and I was on a comedy, finally. I was on a show called Mind of the Married Man on HBO, which was supposed to be the men's answer to Sex and the City, except Sex and the City, they were all single women having sex, and Mind of the Married Men, they were all married men having sex, so it didn't work. And on this show, I was just in tears all the time. I had good hair, but like nothing else, and I was just like, I think I can fucking do better. Like, no one thinks I'm funny. I'm gonna write something. So I wrote, you know, a pilot, and I showed it to some of my producer friends, and they said, there's just no way you could have written this because the structure's too good, and I guess they think I'm stupid. So they said, write another one, because it was a fluke. So I wrote another one, and they said the same thing. Well, this one's really good too, but like the third one, you will fuck up. So I wrote a third one. I wrote 5 spec scripts of a show called G-Spot. Her name was Gigi, and I knew I'd sell a show called G-Spot. I call the tagline I came up with it. It's a new show hard to put your finger on. Get it? Anyway, I don't know how it happened. I am Canadian, so I can work both sides of the industry. And I had my agent was over in New York. She was going to see some theater, and I left her my scripts, and she said, can I bring it to the literary agent? And it just got made very quickly. It got sold to HBO Canada. In the States, it was on Hulu. And I discovered, after being a little starlet for so long, I discovered that my favorite thing to do was to write it and then to go in the editing room. And then I don't like getting up.
The beginning and the end.
The beginning and the end, because you can create and recreate a show. You can rewrite a show in the editing room. You can fix performances. I found that whole art form so amazing. I had a great editor. But the middle, where I have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and like, well, the love scenes are fun. I would have them all before lunch because your stomach is flattest. But I did it. I loved it. I appreciated it. But I had been performing for a long time, so it was, let's just put it this way. I liked being the boss. That's why I did it. Actors have so little say. I learned, like, in a TV show, years before the actors come in, it's being written, it's being pre-produced, it's being worked on. So I found the whole thing fascinating. So it just became this thing that I thought, this is my calling. My mother was right. Brigitte, you can write. So I want to say something about why maybe Angela resonated with me. My last name, Bako, is Hungarian, and it actually means the executioner. So obviously that was a family name, and the thing was, you respected your executioner because, guys, you wanted a clean cut. I say this to all my exes. I'll give you a clean cut.
I love it.
That was fantastic.
The king
I believe
of
Jamie
understatement.
called you that in the control room.
Yeah, exactly.
Always.
Always.
Jennifer, when we first talked about putting this thing together, you were the only person who I ever thought of to be the co-host of this thing.
Why?
All you have to do is listen to the show to know that. We had one show that she wasn't on, and all Weisman and I did was drone over each other. She brings personality to this thing. We need her.
Like, we've been in the trenches in this fandom for a long time, and so I thought it was a pretty cool idea. When you brought it up, I did not expect it to do as well as it seems to be doing, but we're having a good time, and I really enjoy picking apart the show in, like, different levels. I like the guests that we get. I like that it's not just all these beautiful faces, although I love having beautiful faces like this on the show. But, you know, we're talking to animators, and we're talking to sound designers, and, you know, that kind of thing. I absolutely love that aspect of it, and I'm glad we get to do that.
And when we launched this thing, we had no idea Gargoyles was going to make the comeback that it did. We recorded our first episodes before NECA announced the first figure.
Wow.
So I felt like we kind of struck while the iron was hot, or at least heating up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think our timing was really good.
Speaking of, this show, despite being set in the 90s and very much of the 90s, it has always felt very timeless to me. And I'm not entirely sure to this day quite how you pulled it off. There's so many shows, you watch them, they're from their era, but they're stuck in their era. This one, despite the lack of cell phones, was not.
But I think that's
We
because...
had cell phones, they were just the size of a brick.
Yeah.
And they had antenna
I think
that
it's
you had
just
to
a
pull out.
classical underlying story that makes it survive. Like, it's not meant to be in like just that time. Like, it is a classical, the just basic like literary kind of follow through on it, and I think that helped it survive.
We talked a little bit about this last night, but
That and I wouldn't let it die.
no.
Thank you.
No, we definitely wouldn't. Obviously we're up here. But in a way that was ahead of its time, inclusivity from day one in a way that did not feel like tokenism like a lot of other TV shows at the time would engage in.
That was a priority for us. Me specifically, I was and continued to be bored with stories about white people. And I say this as a white person myself. It just felt like, wow, I've seen that already. I've seen that already. Oh, I've seen that already. Oh, I've seen that already. Because every show was that. And we were set in Manhattan, and I'd lived in Manhattan for a few years. I was never truly a New Yorker. I've always been an Angelino. Props. But I knew what New York was like, and New York was not a town filled with only white people or only white people and one black person, which is what a lot of cartoons were then.
Yeah.
6 white people and 1 black person. And this was something that we didn't succeed in, mostly because of Kenner. Not Hasbro, Kenner. What is wrong with you people? But the other thing was that most of those shows were 6 guys and 1 woman. And that we didn't succeed in, and I'm still trying to fix that problem. To create just a normal
50-50 kind of.
50-50 balance between male and female characters. There was a lot of push against that, particularly from the toy company, which is, doesn't exist anymore. So
Take that, Kenner.
That's what they get.
But Gargoyles does.
But we wanted, we worked even on, what we call ND characters, nondescript characters, incidental characters, characters who don't even have a line. Where I'm like, they don't all have to be white characters in the background. That's not New York. And when we had characters who did speak, they don't all have to be white as well. And it was something that we had to police. Not because that we had a bunch of people at the studio going, we want more white characters. That wasn't the case. But it was because it was automatic. Like they'd been trained. Yeah, that was the default. And I was tired of that. I was just really, really tired of that and annoyed by it. So yeah, I think we were ahead of our time in that sense. I think relative to kids programming, we were ahead of our time in the storytelling sense that Jennifer was just talking about. We weren't in any way the first who was doing the kind of storytelling that we're talking about. And I know I've talked about this on the show before, but I was hugely affected by Hill Street Blues. And Hill Street Blues was a major inspiration for the show. And I've said this before, and I will carry this flag for the rest of my life. Hill Street Blues created all modern television. There is no Breaking Bad without Hill Street Blues. There is no Sopranos without Hill Street Blues. There is no St. Elsewhere without Hill Street Blues. There is no any show you like now in any genre without Hill Street Blues. And what that was about, I mean, obviously it was a cop show, that's what it was about. But what that was about is that characters grew, they changed, that the situation at the end of the episode was not the situation at the beginning of the episode, because if you do an episode of TV and by the end of the episode it all goes back to exactly where it was, then what was the point of watching that episode? And now we take that for granted. So much television that we enjoy and watch, and everyone has different preferences. Again, your mileage may vary, but whether you love Game of Thrones or whether you love modern Star Trek or anything, it's about what are the changes we go through across the episode that make the episode matter. Otherwise, why were we bothering with it? And that began with Hill Street. Before that, almost all television you saw was status quo ante bellum. By the end of the episode, things returned to the situation that it was in at the beginning of the episode. And in the next episode, there was almost never any repercussions from what had come before. My kids and I watch all sorts of shows. Monk, Dead Boy Detectives, Resident Alien, all sorts of shows, some of which we love and some of which we only kind of like, but all of them have that quality now. But back then it was rare, and in kids programming it was almost unheard of.
Oh, yeah.
And I think if you talk about why the show still resonates, why you can watch it, and aside from the occasional brick-sized cell phone, not notice that it isn't contemporary, is A, Elisa's fashion sense is classic and never goes away.
Classic.
Yeah.
And B, because the storytelling feels modern. What we take for granted now was brand new in the 80s, and in kids programming, non-existent or virtually non-existent. And that's what keeps the show feeling contemporary.
I'm going to make a statement. I was talking about this with people at breakfast this morning. We talk about prestige television, and you mentioned Sopranos, you mentioned Breaking Bad and other shows like that. As far as I'm concerned, and there was a lot of great animated shows at the time. Batman animated series I'm going to include on this list also. But other shows that were on paper, those were your peers, but the prestige television shows, for me, that's about quality, the depth you bring to the storytelling. Shows like Sopranos, Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, those are your peers.
No, thanks.
Yes.
Yeah. True.
Can I just tell you one little story about Breaking Bad? I went to meet the producer, I forget her last name, Melissa, and I had a writing meeting, and you never get invited to the writer's room. You always go to the producer's office. But for some reason, she said, let's meet at the undisclosed, somewhere in Burbank, the writer's room for Breaking Bad. The amount of pot, smoke, that wafted.
Not surprised.
That is how they wrote that fucking genius show. High as a kite. Because I was like, you couldn't see the woman through the smoke. It's my Breaking Bad story.
To circle back to a topic, Zehra, you watched this as a fan. And we're going to talk about inclusivity and diversity, of course.
Yeah.
Zehra, did that mean something to you when you were watching the show?
Oh my gosh. So when I was watching the show, I was kind of in the target audience. I was 10 years old. And I didn't actively notice at the time that it was diverse. That wasn't even a thought in my mind. But what I did notice is, oh my gosh, I look like Elisa. Elisa looks like me. That's cool. I want to be her. And just the nature of the show, having a different species standing in contrast to humanity, was in a way this beautiful, of course, it's this beautiful metaphor of feeling like other, feeling different, having people be afraid of you. I grew up in Indiana, in a town that was pretty homogenous ethnicity-wise. My parents are from Pakistan and India. And there were times I wasn't acutely aware that I wasn't white, but I always felt like I am a little different. I'm a little bit of an outsider, and I don't know why. And so I think for me, I loved the X-Men as well, again, for the similar metaphor of people who are different, people who are outsiders, and people who are outsiders finding community with other outsiders and realizing we're not alone, we're a number, and we're home. And I think that main theme in Gargoyles really, without knowing actively and thinking, because that's not how kids process TV. We don't process things in terms of like, that's that, and that's that, and that's that, and that's fair and balanced. That's not how we consume media. When a story touches your heart, you just get it. You get it on an instinctual level. You feel seen. And I think that's the importance of, especially in media for young people, being able to see themselves in one way or another. Yeah. And I also want to say, like, Greg is such a beautiful anomaly in our business.
Yes, yes.
In that he is always, it's been a matter of fact him. It's been like breathing the air, his push to include other perspectives and other voices and other viewpoints. It's just who he is. And I'm so grateful that your voice is present in making content for young people. And you've inspired so many showrunners and creators.
I'm grateful for that too.
I miss that because I'm being so sincere. You've inspired so many showrunners and creators following in your footsteps. For them, it's also like breathing the air. And you said something earlier about white being the default. And I think, you know, a lot of people criticize woke and tokenism and by calling it that, when it's really, y'all don't realize the default has been white for years and years and years in this country's media. And for anybody who's not white, you notice that. You notice that. And how you interpret it, that differs with every person, but white is the default. And that's a hard place to be in if you're not.
I mean,
white.
that's not how life really is.
And it's not reflective of a lot of parts of our country, or the world, So, I don't know, it's a complicated thing. I'm so glad people like you have always been tackling it and not running away from it.
Thanks. No, I mean, today I get accused, of, in the comics that, oh, he's just taken Gargoyles and made it woke. First off,
They've never watched Gargoyles.
so I'm like, first off, I'm like, okay, to me, woke is not a dirty word. I feel like I'm not woke enough. I'm working on it. You know, I'm a work in progress along those lines. That's A.
A woke in progress.
Yeah, woke in progress. But B, even assuming that it is a dirty word, it's like, dude, did you ever watch the show? And it's always a dude, just to be clear. But it's not just me. I mean, you see that in Star Trek. You see that in Star Wars. You see that in almost anything where they're like, oh, they've destroyed it. I'm like, did you watch the original? Because nothing's changed. This was always what it is. Now, we have advanced some, but it's not like Uhura wasn't on the bridge of the Enterprise.
Right.
You know, it's not like Sulu wasn't on the bridge of the Enterprise. And it's crazy to me that, I mean, truly crazy to me that we're still fighting battles from 1964. It's infuriating. Truly infuriating. That I even have to have these discussions. Or that when I do, someone hacks my account and makes my life miserable for months. it is mind-boggling to me that this is still a fight we're even having. You know, if Gargoyles was woke in the 90s or even progressive or ahead of its time in the 90s, in the 90s, that's sad. It is. It's sad that on that level, not at the storytelling, but on this kind of thing, we should not have been unique. I don't think we were. I think there were other shows doing that too. I don't think we were the only ones. But the fact that we were even one of just a few shows as opposed to it already being automatic, just, let alone now, 30 years later, it depresses the hell out of me, if I'm being honest. We should just be so far past this.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you.
Well,
Now we're all thoroughly depressed.
there's always the future.
Yep.
So let's talk about some of your collaborators who didn't attend this con, who aren't here. Jen, you listed some of the ones that we've had on the show. A lot of them have been great. And we have a really funny story at some point, which we might share as an outtake of us talking to Jonathan Frakes at the Jiffy Lube.
We really need to do an edit, like things that we've cut out of the podcast.
A blooper reel?
It's usually just
Absolutely need a gag reel.
it's usually you just telling Greg and I to move the F on.
Does he ever stop talking? Ever?
The answer is no, he does
No,
not.
he doesn't.
And we did a little bit of this last night, but are there any of your collaborators on this show or on this series that you want to shout out right now?
You know, for me, it's got to start with Frank Parr, who was my partner on the show. Here's a little scoop. As most of you know, I'm writing Gargoyles comics for Dynamite. We're in the middle. We did 12 issues of Gargoyles and 6 issues of Gargoyles Dark Ages, plus a Gargoyles Halloween special, which was a lot of fun. And we are in the middle of a 5-issue Gargoyles Quest miniseries. And it looks like what's going to follow that is a little project, which I can't say what it is yet, but it's a little something that Frank Parr and I are working on together with Frank. Penciling and inking and me writing, although it's Frank's idea. Frank came up with it, and I can't say what it is yet, but I'm really excited about it. Dynamite's really excited about it. Frank's really excited about it, and I think you're going to love it. And so, you know, the show isn't, I get a lot of credit, which I deserve. But the show is not the show without a whole lot of other people, and that starts with Frank Parr. And the second is the late, great Michael Reeves.
Yeah, God bless.
Before I even knew I was going to produce the show, I was looking for a story editor for the show, and we went through a lot of very talented people who didn't get it, who just didn't get it. Either they thought, oh, well, this is for Disney, so they started writing it like it was, you know, jokey and all sorts of things. Not that we don't have humor in the show, but, you know, we're not DuckTales. I love DuckTales, but that's not what Gargoyles is. Or they, you know, made it dark, and I know the show is dark, but they made it dark and unpleasant. You know, they didn't see the
goodness,
the colors
and
of the
optimism.
night. You know, they didn't. Everything was black. You know,
Dreary.
And Michael Reeves came in. We stole him from Batman the Animated Series, just as we stole Frank from Batman the Animated Series and half of our crew. Michael Reeves came in and he got it. And because I had gotten to the point, I was eager to write it myself, and I'd written the Bible, but wasn't allowed to write the actual scripts. And I'd gotten to the point where I was thinking, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this, all these great writers, people I respected and admired, were not getting this show. Maybe we've created a puzzle where the pieces don't fit. And then Michael Reeves came in, and suddenly he was proof of concept.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then we talked about our composer, Carl Johnson, last night. We talked about our amazing voice director, don't tell him I said that, Jamie Thomason, who I adore. Don't tell him I said that either.
I'm going to tell.
And then, of course, this fantastic cast, two of whom are up here now, and tremendous artists and everything. Our editors, Bob Burchard, who also passed away a few years ago, who edited all of season 2.
Wow.
Just everybody. And everybody put in all this extra effort. I mean, all the way to like Laurel Whitcomb, who was the publicist for the show and cared about it. And Laurel came to our rap party and met Mark Perlman, who was our music editor, and now they're married and their kid is out of college and everything. And they've been together forever.
The Gargoyles love
and then
connection.
There's, Revel and Space Baby are in the audience. Yeah. We've made human beings with this show. Children who would not exist, literally would not exist without this show.
That's power.
That gives me a lot of power.
You two are going to play that for Caitlin and Megan later, aren't you?
We just had just people who really dedicated themselves at every level. This show mattered to the people who worked on it, and then they all went off and did amazing things. My assistant on the show was a young woman named Monique Beatty, who now runs production at DreamWorks Animation. All of production at DreamWorks Animation. She is phenomenal. And we could not have done Gargoyles without her. She did all this research for us on Scottish history, alongside my friend Tuppence McIntyre, who was a Los Angeles district attorney, but then had a fascination with Scottish history, so did a whole bunch of research for us. People who weren't even getting paid were having fun working on this show. It was an incredible experience, and there were a lot of great people.
Jennifer, I'm going to answer this question myself in a moment, but
This ain't good. This ain't good.
I need to ask you, what has doing this podcast meant to you for these last couple of years?
As I said before, we've been in the trenches here. We've been in this fandom and trying to hold it together and keep it going for so long. And I felt like that was fizzling. Like we were finally moving on to something else. And you brought this up, and I was like, maybe we're not done. And then everything exploded. I am very proud of this podcast. I really enjoy it. I really think that it's a great insight into not just Gargoyles, but into animation in general, which has always been something important to me. Always, animation was my thing. I was a high schooler that would get up and watch Saturday morning cartoons,
Me too.
It's nice to keep it alive, to keep things going, to learn things about. I hope if you're listening to the podcast, you're learning something about animation as well. And it's kind of an homage to our family here. And these people are family. So.
For me, this all started when I have a friend who runs a website of Spider-Man related podcasts, which actually hosts this one. We're kind of off-brand, but it hosts this one. And he knew I knew Greg Weisman, and he suggested to me we should do a spectacular Spider-Man show. And so I write to Greg and said, hey, we're talking about doing this. Would you be interested in coming on at least once? And he said, hey, I'll come on for every show. And we ended up with something very unique. We would
The man
go
is
through...
desperate for friends.
No, wait.
We went through
Attention,
all 26...
not friends. Attention. I don't need friends. That's just crazy talk.
And we had members of the cast and crew from that show on also.
I was
Went
on
through
that
every
show,
episode.
too.
She was on it a few times because she worked on Spectacular Spider-Man. She also went fan to pro. But as we were going through, Gargoyles would always inevitably come up on that show. Always, every time. And I was thinking, you know what? I think I really want to do that. As soon as we're done with Spectacular Radio, which we did finish, we made it all the way to Final Curtain. That was fantastic. And I also want to shout out to Zach Joyner, who runs the website that hosts us, and he does a lot of other great shows in there, mostly Spider-Man related. Clone Saga Chronicles, Make Mine Mayday, about the 90s Spider-Girl comic, Mayday Parker. A lot of great stuff on there. Books of X, about the current X-Men run. A lot of other great stuff. I'm plugging them because I promised them that I would. But no, we are grateful. And I've been told by a few people out there that part of the reasons why this podcast really works, it's Jennifer, it's Greg, it's myself. Most of the time, it's three friends talking about a show they love. And one of them happens to be the series creator.
It just happens to be.
That's a unique experience, I think.
But then coming up here, this is a little bit nerve-wracking and stuff, but I just told Bashansky before we came out on stage, we're just going to be sitting up there talking with our friends. Mm-hmm. And these people are amazing friends, so. And that's why I like that aspect of the podcast. I like that it's just us we're getting information, but we're goofing around, we're having a good time.
Mm-hmm. And we already knew Thom before this, and Zehra and Brigitte. It was great to bring you on that time
So
to get to
fun.
know you.
That was fun.
It was so fun. Thank you.
And we definitely want to have you on again. We've got an episode in mind that we want to bring you on for.
I would love to do that. And I just want to say, I think I've only done 3 cartoons. Gargoyles was first. Then I did Godzilla. I was Monique the French bitch on the And then I did an anime. And then nobody ever called me again. So I really want to do another cartoon, please. Write to your senators. I don't know how we get this done.
And Thom, as always, we appreciate having you on. Zehra, it was great to have you on finally, even though you're on every show. But
I'm so glad.
And I just want to say, for me, what doing this means to me is, the world is a very uncertain place right now. It has been for the last few years. I'm not naming names, but you all know who I'm talking about. And they ask, shouldn't you be worrying about more important things? You know what? Entertaining people is important, especially
Art
during
is
these
important.
trying times. These people, these professional entertainers, doing all that. And the fact that I like to think that we're a small part of that. If we can make people smile or just take their minds off of things, the trials and tribulations that are going on in the world right now, that maybe we're just brightening someone's day. That's important to me, and I think that's important to you and the rest of you.
Absolutely.
I just like hearing the sound of my own voice.
A lot. He likes it a lot.
No, this series has meant a lot to me personally. Obviously, but and I just never would have envisioned I would be up here one day with these amazing people, everyone up here, especially my co-host here.
Mm-hmm, it's wonderful.
That's because he was scared of me for a really long time.
No, couldn't do it without you, Jen. Really couldn't. And but also all of you, all of our listeners, those of you who have listened from day one, those who have come in later. We've met people who rediscovered the fandom through this podcast. I think some of you are out there right now. Even Star, I see you over there. And it's just been a pleasure. It's just been a joy, and I should not be the one to have the last word up here. So to our guests, is there any last things that you want to say to everyone up here?
I'll go last.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's going to, yeah, we're going to run over time if we let him go first.
Let's keep watching Gargoyles on Disney Plus and reading the comics, and let's just keep enjoying and keep talking to each other about stuff.
My dream is that they continue the series and you actually get
Oh, that'd be a
to
dream come
voice
true.
that.
That'd be a dream come
That
true.
is my
I feel like I've
dream.
lived out a little of my dream working on Young Justice with Greg and with Jamie Thomason, our voice director, and being part of a really amazing ensemble cast. So, but oh my gosh, if Gargoyles came back, yeah, that would be a dream come true.
I keep getting excited every time they talk. I hear often, like Greg does, and everybody, they're making a live action, it's bringing it back. I hear it all the time, and I just hope every time I get so excited, is that going to really happen? Is that really going to happen? But
Same here. I always keep hearing that they're going to relaunch the series, and I always hope it will still be animation so that I can still play the teenage warrior gargoyle that I am.
Yep.
I've kept this shit together for a long time, but I don't know if I can do it in live action.
It's performance capture for the Gargoyles.
There you go.
You
But
can do it.
it really doesn't make any sense to me that it hasn't happened yet. It's because it's so loved, and it's always the question I get, and I've done a lot of other things, and I never get a question for any of those things, just for Gargoyles, and it just seems like a no-brainer, and I don't know why there's so many dumb people that don't make it, because I think we'd have a great, great, great following, and
Well, and
obviously...
Every since I got the Gargoyle Lexington tattoo, because I live in Palm Springs, I'm always wearing tank tops, and I at least
Yeah, that's
3
why.
He
Tank top
clothes and
and
him just
biker
don't get along.
shorts. That's my outfit. Tank top and a rainbow-colored tank top and biker shorts. And, that gets me. But literally every single day since I've gotten this and I've had a tank top on, somebody goes, "Oh my God, that's Gargoyles. I love that show." And I go, "I did that voice." And they're like, literally like at least three
If
times
you-
a day.
Wear a Gargoyle shirt out in public, and someone will come up and say, "I love that show."
Yeah.
Always.
I wore this shirt to
and
Disneyland and was like mobbed by people
Yeah.
telling me they love this show.
And the people are always they always go, "Oh God, that show saved my life. That show brought me out of
important
my
to
shell."
people.
I mean, every time.
I should not have tattooed Angela to my ass.
I think we need proof.
Wait for the blue mug.
Tonight at 11:30.
Every time I wear a Gargoyles shirt, and that's often because I have 27 Gargoyles shirts or something like
And
that.
one waiting in
The
LA.
convention
Right.
had nothing to do with any of those.
People say to me, "Oh, I love that show," and I say, "Thank you." And then they look at me like, "What is wrong with you?"
What an egotistical douche.
And the funny thing is that's true even whether or not you know I'm the creator. I love doing this podcast. Obviously, like I said, love the sound of my own voice. And I love these two people so much.
He's put up with us for a long time.
I have. I've put up with them for a long time. But that's sort of a two-way street. And I love all our guests because every single one of them means so much to me. And it's such a, I can't tell you, just our voice recording sessions back then were so much fun.
Joyous. They were
I mean,
joyous.
So fun.
Think about a room with Thom Adcox, Jeff Bennett, Bill Fagerbacke, Keith David, Jonathan Frakes, Marina Sirtis, Ed fucking Asner. And that's just our regulars.
Yeah.
You know, throw in John Rhys Davies, throw in David Warner,
CCH
Pounder, Michael Dorn,
So
LeVar Burton, and Nichelle Nichols,
Yeah.
Brent Spiner, yeah, everyone you've ever heard of in Star Trek. Yeah, you know, Kate Mulgrew came in and had such a good time.
Yeah.
And Terrence Mann as Oberon and Kate as Titania. Who gets Terrence Mann? And we got all these people. At one point, Jamie pointed out that we had 4 of the top Hamlets in history in the room at once. We had Roger Rees and David Warner and I'm blanking out who else was in the room that day, but I mean, just incredible people. Brigitte and everybody on that show, honestly, was such a joy to work with. And back in those days, we'd record them all together. They built so much energy throughout the episode playing off each other. And Jamie had the strangest damn haircut in those days. So weird.
Describe it. What did
It
it
was
look like?
kind of mullet-ish.
It was like,
Is it like Brooklyn? His hair?
Oh, yeah,
Fagerbach,
maybe.
he called him the white Al Sharpton. And
Oh my God.
you know, those were the highlights of my week in, week out. Was going to, back then it was called Screen Music Studios, and we'd go there in Studio C. That studio was torn apart, doesn't exist anymore. But with Deb Adair was our engineer, and Mark Caballero was
Deb
our
Adair. Oh my
editorial assistant. And like I said, from top to bottom, everyone worked so hard to make this show as good as it could possibly be. And on this show, on Voices, we get to celebrate all these people week in and week out. And I am tremendously grateful to Greg and Jennifer for giving me the opportunity to talk ad nauseum about something that I love so much.
Thank you. All right. I think we're out of time now, so if you want to keep up with us, you can follow us on the app formerly known as Twitter at From Eyrie, FROMEYRIE. It's written over there. You can follow us on Instagram at Gargoyles Voices. And check us out on Patreon. Help us keep the lights on at Spidey Dude Network. Thank you.
Thank you so much.